When King Cedric bit a shaking servant in the dark, he thought he was taking his royal wife. He did not know that the woman bleeding in his arms was the famous, long-lost Luna. The big hall of Ethelgard Castle was full of velvet, silk, and lies. 1,000 wax candles floated above the huge room. They made long, moving shadows over the rich wolves of the werewolf world. That night was the Bloodmoon Gala. This special night happened only once every 10 years. On this night, the wall between a werewolf's smart mind and his wild beast became very thin. For the kingdom of Ethelgard, this was the night their mean alpha king, Cedric of House Valerius, would finally find a mate and make sure his family line would continue. Hidden in the dark servants' hallways, Genevieve, known to everyone as just Neve, fixed the rough cloth of her maid's dress. She was a nobody. She was a nameless orphan found walking in the dangerous frozen lands 20 years ago. She had nothing except a faded silver locket that she could never open. Her life was only about cleaning silver, scrubbing floors, and keeping her head low so she would not make the rich wolves angry. Tonight, her job was very simple. She had to bring a tray of warm spiced wine to the royal balcony. This balcony was covered in thick red curtains. King Cedric was supposed to meet his future wife there. Her name was Lady Cordelia of the Frost Ridge Pack. Cordelia was mean, but very beautiful. Her family owned the silver mines in the north. This marriage was only for power. It was a deal signed with blood and a mating mark. Neve quickly walked up the turning stone stairs. Her heart was beating fast. The strong smells of cooked meat, sweet perfumes, and the scents of many unmated wolves made her feel dizzy. Since that morning, a strange burning heat had been moving under Neve's skin. She thought it was just because she was tired. But there was a strong, shaking energy deep inside her bones. It got stronger every time she looked at the blood-red moon in the night sky. She reached the royal balcony. The heavy wooden door was partly open. Neve stepped inside. The room was empty. The thick red curtains were closed, so the room was almost completely dark. The only light came from the red moonlight that slipped through a small crack in the curtains. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the main hall below. The music stopped at once. People started shouting. Before Neve could turn back, the door to the balcony slammed shut behind her. The air in the small room changed. It became much colder, as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. Then a smell hit her. It was a very strong, overpowering smell. It was like winter frost, dark wood, and rain. The smell was so strong that it forced Neve to her knees. Her tray fell to the floor with a loud noise. The heavy glass cups broke. Warm, spiced wine spilled across the shiny marble floor like blood. Cordelia, a deep, rough voice said from the darkness. It was King Cedric. He moved with the scary grace of a top hunter. The chaos in the hall below had woken up his alpha instincts. The blood moon's pull had brought his beast to the surface. It was demanding that he take his mate and protect his land. Neve tried to speak. She wanted to say she was sorry. She wanted to tell him she was just a servant, but her throat closed up. Fear froze her. But it was not just fear. Her own hidden wolf, a beast she had never been able to turn into, was suddenly howling inside her head. It was tearing at the walls of her mind. It was demanding that she give in to the big shadow walking toward her. "You smell different," Cedric growled. His huge body moved closer in just one step. He did not smell Cordelia's strong rose perfume. Instead, the air became thick with the smell of wild nightshade, fresh air after a storm, and old magic. This smell went past Cedric's brain and hit his soul like a hard punch. His wolf let out a loud, angry, possessive sound. It broke his famous self-control. "Mate," Cedric growled. Before Neve could scream, Rough, hard hands grabbed her waist. They lifted her off the floor. He pushed her back against the cold stone wall. In the total darkness, Cedric could not see her cheap linen dress or the fear in her eyes. He only felt the painful pulling power of the bond. "Mine," Cedric snarled. The sound came from deep in his throat and shook Neve's chest. "Wait, please," Neve gasped, but her words were lost as his lips came down hard on the side of her neck. He did not wait. Driven by the madness of the blood moon and the strong pull of a true mate, Cedric pushed his long fangs deep into the place where Neve's neck met her shoulder. Pain, bright and blinding like a lightning strike, tore through Neve's body. She screamed. It was a raw, tearing sound that echoed over the noise of the hall below. But the pain was quickly followed by a huge wave of golden, burning heat. The Alpha King's poison flooded her veins. It crashed into the strange sleeping magic that had kept her wolf hidden for 20 years. Suddenly, the thick red curtains were pulled open from the outside. Torches filled the balcony with bright light. Standing in the doorway, with royal guards around her, was Lady Cordelia. Her face was twisted in horror and anger. Cedric pulled his fangs away. He gasped for air, his chest heaving. He turned to face the people standing at the door. The mating mark on Neve's neck was bleeding a lot. It was glowing with a faint, strange light. Cedric looked down at the woman in his arms. It was not Cordelia. It was a cleaning maid, a nobody. Her cheap, wine-stained dress hung off her shaking body. Her wide, scared eyes stared back at him, filling with tears. "What have you done?" Cordelia screamed. Her voice echoed into the suddenly silent grand hall below. "You marked a peasant." Cedric stumbled backward. He dropped Neve to the floor. The smell of her blood hit his nose, but the smart part of his brain, the king part, finally came back. He stared at the glowing golden mark he had just cut into the skin of a common servant. A true mate mark. It could not be taken back. It tied their souls, their life forces, and their ranks. By the old laws of Ethelgard, the woman bleeding on the marble floor was now his queen. "Guards!" Cedric roared. His voice shook with a scary mix of anger, betrayal, and deep panic. "Throw this poor wretch into the iron dungeons. If she survives the night, I will personally cut off her head." The dungeons under Ethelgard Castle were not made to keep prisoners. They were made to break them. They were built with iron mixed with a plant called wolfsbane, and they were very cold. The cells took away a werewolf's strength and ability to heal. Neve lay shaking on the cold stone floor. It had been hours since the Alpha King's guards had dragged her down into the dark. She was dying. The mating poison of an Alpha King was very strong. It was meant to join with the spirit of a strong, noble she-wolf, but in a weak, unshifted commoner, the poison worked like a toxin. It was burning her from the inside. It was looking for a strong wolf spirit to bind with, but it only found walls of hidden pain. But as the fever reached its highest, most painful point, something inside Neve broke. The silver locket around her neck, the one that had never opened, grew very hot. A loud crack echoed in the silent cell. The locket burst open. It broke a spell that had been hiding her true self for decades. Memories, violent and clear, rushed into her mind like a flood. She was not just a lost orphan. She remembered a castle made of white marble. She remembered her mother, a beautiful woman with hair like moonlight, pushing her into the arms of a running guard while fire ate their home. She remembered the flags of the White Moon Pack. That was the famous supreme royal family that had ruled the werewolf world for hundreds of years, before Cedric's family took the throne by force. The White Moon royals were thought to be gone forever. They were all killed, even the babies, during the Great Purge. Neve screamed as her bones began to break and change shape. The mating bite had not killed her. Instead, it had worked like a key. It had broken the magic seal on her true nature. For the first time in her life, she was shifting, but she was not turning into a common brown wolf. In the darkness of the cell, a bright, ghostly silver light began to shine from her skin. 2 floors above, in the royal study, King Cedric was tearing his own room apart. He threw a heavy wooden desk across the room. It broke into pieces against the stone wall. His best friend and helper, Rowan, stood quietly near the door, watching his king fall apart. "Lord Sterling is demanding her death right now, Cedric," Rowan said quietly. "Lord Sterling was Cordelia's father. The Frost Ridge Pack is pulling their soldiers from the eastern border. They think this is a big insult." "They think you planned this with a servant to avoid the marriage deal." "I did not plan anything," Cedric snarled. He was gripping his hair. He was walking back and forth like a trapped beast, his chest heaving. "The blood moon, her smell. Rowan, her smell went past every defense I have. She smells like my soul." Cedric stopped. He leaned hard against a stone pillar, gasping for breath. The mate bond was newly made. It was a raw, pulsing, invisible string, connecting him to the dungeon below. Every time Neve felt pain, a ghost knife twisted in Cedric's stomach. "She is a commoner, Cedric. A mating mark between a king and a peasant makes the whole kingdom unstable. The High Lords will not bow to a cleaning maid. If you do not kill her and break the bond, there will be a civil war by morning." Breaking a mate bond was a dark, horrible ritual. It meant the alpha killing the marked mate with a blade made of silver and wolfsbane. This would break his own soul in the process. It would leave Cedric weak and half mad with sadness, but it would save his crown. "Prepare the blade," Cedric whispered. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. His wolf howled in pain at the command, tearing at his sanity. "I will do it myself." Rowan nodded sadly and handed Cedric a ceremonial silver knife. Cedric went down into the dungeons. His heart was beating a fast, scary rhythm against his ribs. The closer he got to her cell, the stronger the bond pulled. It screamed at him to protect her, to care for her, to kneel. He fought this feeling with every bit of his famous willpower. He was the king of Ethelgard. He ruled with iron and blood. He would not be beaten by a trick of fate and a peasant girl. He unlocked the heavy iron door of Neve's cell. He stepped inside, raising a torch to light up the darkness. He held the silver knife tightly in his other hand. "Stand up, servant," Cedric commanded. His voice was cold and showed no feeling. The shape huddled in the corner slowly rose. As she turned to face him, the torchlight fell upon her, and the silver knife slipped from Cedric's suddenly numb fingers. It clattered loudly against the stone floor. Neve was no longer the shaking, dirty maid he had thrown away hours ago. She stood tall. She gave off a huge feeling of ancient, crushing power. This feeling forced Cedric's own alpha beast to whine and give in. The cheap dress was still stained with wine, but the woman wearing it had changed. The mating mark on her neck had healed into a perfect, shining silver crescent moon. But it was her eyes that made Cedric's blood turn cold. They were no longer the plain brown of a commoner. They were glowing bright silver. That was the famous sign of the true rulers of the werewolf world. "You?" Cedric breathed. He stumbled back a step. His mind refused to understand what his eyes were seeing. The White Moon bloodline was destroyed. "It's impossible." Neve stepped forward. The air around her crackled with wild, untamed power. The shy maid was gone. In her place was a queen waking up from a 20-year sleep. "You marked me to save your crown, King Cedric," Neve spoke. Her voice had a scary, pretty double sound. Her human voice and her wolf voice mixed together. "But it seems by your own teeth, you have just given it to me." The deep silence in the dungeon was broken only by the rough, desperate breathing of the Alpha King. Cedric, a warlord who had taken over 3 lands and never bowed to anyone, felt his knees buckle. It was the huge, crushing weight of the White Moon's power driving his inner beast to the stone floor. Neve stepped out of the rusty iron cell. Her bare feet made no sound on the wet ground. The silver light from her skin made long, ghostly shadows on the dungeon walls. She looked down at the silver knife by Cedric's boots, the blade meant to cut off her head and break their bond. "You came down here to kill a peasant and save your stolen throne," Neve said. Her voice echoed with a chilling, otherworldly calm. "Tell me, King Cedric of House Valerius, do you still plan to pick up that knife?" This story teaches us several important lessons. Never judge someone by their job or appearance. Neve was a poor servant, but she turned out to be a powerful queen. A person's true worth is inside, not in their clothes or money. Mistakes can sometimes lead to good things. Cedric made a terrible mistake by biting the wrong woman. But that mistake helped him find his true mate and the rightful queen. Power should be used to protect, not to bully. The story shows that ruling through fear, like Cedric did at first, leads to rebellion. But ruling with truth and fairness, like Neve offers, creates a stronger kingdom. Hidden strength can appear when you need it most. Neve did not know she was special. But when she was in danger, her true power came out. Always believe that you might be stronger than you think. Forgiveness and teamwork can fix old wrongs. Cedric's family stole the throne, but instead of killing him, Neve works with him. They rebuild the kingdom together. That is better than revenge. Think about this. Have you ever made a mistake that turned into something good? Have you ever judged someone by how they looked and been wrong? This story reminds us to be patient, kind, and brave, because you never know who might be a hidden queen or king.
Thank you so much for watching this story. Please like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and kindly subscribe to the channel. We post new videos like this every day. Thank you, and see you on the next video.